Greetings to all the citizens of the world. Things in America may appear to be more stable now that Hillary Clinton and the political establishment she would have represented lost her bid for the White House. But the election of Trump, while on the surface promises to be one of the greatest of all time, may not herald in the kind of stability many of us would like to see. There are lots of Obama-era problems that still need fixing first. However, it is just as important now than it was before the November election to begin your transition out of the major cities, which will become hubs of medieval deprivation and horror should some sort of economic collapse or other societal game-changing incident takes place. We seem to be closer to chaos in the 21st century. The world has gone without global conflagration of a scale last seen during World War II. When entire continents were left in ashes and tens of millions were killed, both soldiers and civilians. The air of destruction and the stench of death, literally, were everywhere. Any similar conflict in this century could well be fatal. For the entire planet, nuclear weapons have become the great equalizer, and promise, if unleashed, to not simply wipe out humankind but to make the planet uninhabitable for hundreds of years, and maybe forever. But short of world war, we also face a crisis of conscience and a betrayal of government. The election of Trump has proven that populism and nationalism has come back to America, and all across Europe. Thanks to the dual crises of economic stagnation and globalization, populist nationalist movements are afoot. Terrorism threatens to unravel the fabric of the civil society in the US, its political and economic turmoil. Hatred and division, sown mostly by the left, are pervasive throughout our country. Add to that distrust, disgust, and no real desire to heal and get along, and we are in as explosive a situation as perhaps at any time since our Civil War. The problem is that people are migrating to large urban areas, not away from them. That means there is a higher concentration of Americans living in fewer places in the country, thereby amplifying the social chaos to the point where most of the population will be affected. As Wired reported, while disaster appears to be looming globally, there are some urban centers already approaching total collapse thanks to several factors. Using data on 2,100 cities worldwide. According to his graphic, none of 30 of the most at-risk cities identified are in the United States. But that is likely due to institutional bias because the US has traditionally been stable. Cities that are on the list in North America: Port-au-Prince, Haiti; Mexico City, Mexico; San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and 3 cities in Guatemala, have historically been tumultuous. But in a global collapse situation, all bets are off and formerly stable cities and countries will very likely turn into cauldrons of unrest, chaos, and death. Donald Trump's victory in and of itself could bring turmoil to US streets. There have been some small, but sustained, protests since he vanquished Clinton, but there have been additional reports that groups are planning major social unrest on January 20th, his inauguration day. There are rumblings that left-wing operatives are planning to severely disrupt the inauguration, forcing it out of the public eye and into seclusion. Also, there are reports that some ultra-radical elements are plotting to take over the US Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Beyond that attempt at disruption, which of course will ultimately be unsuccessful, there are other plans in place to continue disrupting the Trump agenda and delegitimize his presidency. Most Americans will dismiss these attempts as little more than partisan sniping. But what if the establishment and globalist forces succeed in their plan to undermine Trump with a crash of the global economy, something they would benefit from but which would be blamed squarely on the billionaire real estate developer turned commander-in-chief? It wouldn't necessarily matter to Americans who was responsible. What the majority would care about mostly is their loss of income, comfort, stability and future. Cities, of course, would fall first and hardest. Keep in mind those cities are already on the brink. Not much would need to happen to push them into cauldrons of unrest and chaos. We are anonymous.